All right, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage our second speaker of the evening, Mr. Lance Gilstrap.
It's always intimidating to follow rock music. How to be funny. I've heard a number of instructors say that while they can guide people on how to focus their comedy, you can't teach someone how to be funny. I don't think they really mean that. I think that you can teach someone how to be funny, you just can't teach them, you can't teach someone how to be funny to you. I've tried to write universally funny comedy before, but it doesn't work. Turns out everyone's definition of what's funny is different. I looked up the highest grossing comedy of all time, and it is Meet the Fockers. I have to admit, the Fockers franchise stopped at Meet the Parents for me. I like Ben Stiller, but I have faith that I would not find Meet the Fockers to be very funny. But the fact that it's so popular means that a bunch of people do think it's funny. I can't teach you how to be Meet the Fockers funny. I could try, but all I'd really be doing is mimicking what I've seen and what I think works for that crowd. None of it would be inspired. As much as it pains me to say, I think a lot of the comedy in something like Meet the Fockers is probably inspired. Someone truly believed that stuff was funny, and that's probably why that garbage worked for so many people. What someone can be taught is how to be funny to themselves. And surprisingly, it's a short lesson. Part 1, how to be funny. Lesson 1, what's funny to you? Do that. That's pretty much the only lesson. I mean, we can dig into the details, but that's it. Okay, we'll go ahead and break it up. Lesson 1A, what's funny to you? The to you part is where I see a lot of people get thrown. So often I see people on stage get a laugh and then they think laughter equals successful comedy, and so they just keep doing that thing that got a laugh. Believe me, I've done this. Anyone who performs comedy gets horny for laughs. It's normal. The problem is that sometimes those laughs are distracting us from finding inspiration. If what they're laughing at is really funny to you, then go for it. It's great that the audience is on board with you and with what you think is funny. But if what they're laughing at is something that just happened on the way to something inspirational, don't get distracted. Because if an audience laughs at something that you didn't truly find funny, and you decide you're going to chase that laughter, all you can do is repeat it. Then you hit a wall because repetition only works for so long, and you weren't inspired in the first place, so you've got nowhere else to go. You know that kid that says something at the dinner table and the grown-ups laugh? So the kid just repeats that saying that thing because they laughed, and he doesn't know why it's funny, so he just keeps saying it over and over and over again until the grown-ups have to tell him to stop because it's not funny anymore. That's you, pretend person I just made up for this scenario. But if you get to something that you really find funny, you can really run with it because you're inspired. Now you're that kid that makes a fart noise with her mouth, and she thinks it's funny, so she does it again, but this time she adds a little arm gesture. And that was fun. Now she's marching around, leading a fart parade. It's all about inspiration. That kid really likes farts, so sky's the limit. Okay, so let's move on to the next part of the lesson, lesson 1B. What's funny to you? Do that. I know that a lot of this is obvious, but I don't mean do exactly that. I don't mean, well, I think Borat is funny, so I'm gonna say my wife all the time. Though, side note, saying my wife is sometimes really funny, sometimes the opposite of funny, and sometimes it's so not funny that it becomes funny again. It's really hard to get a read on when that thing's gonna work. I would love to create an iPhone app that can update you on whether it's gonna be funny to say, my wife. Let's go ahead and add something in between those two statements. So let's say, what's funny to you? Why do that? I watched a video on the internet a couple weeks ago of a dog that's bad at catching food. I watched it twice and laughed super hard both times, and then I thought, why is this funny? Well, first, a dog is usually good at catching food in its mouth. This dog is terrible at it. Next, the dog is wearing a bandana, which suggests the dog is a proud dog. Maybe he's proud of his food catching skills. The dog licks his chops and appears very determined to catch each piece of food thrown at him, yet he completely fails to even get it close to his mouth most of the time. We know that dog will still get the food once it hits the ground, and he won't really care, so why is the dog so determined to catch the food if he's so bad at it? At one point, it appears he's gonna catch a slice of pizza, and at the last minute, he gets scared, moves, and it lands on his face. My lesson when watching this is not, to be funny, I must be a dog that's bad at catching food. Though if you dressed like a dog and tried to catch food that people were throwing at you, I would laugh. My lesson for me is, to me, it's funny when someone is unexpectedly bad at something, yet continues to be flashy and proud while doing that something despite their lack of skill. If you liked this dog video, you might be interested in writing something like the movies Hot Rod or The Pink Panther. Sometimes it just boils down to dogs are funny, though. My point is, figure out why something's funny and find ways to express that in different ways. That ends part 1. Now on to the more important lesson. Part 2, how to be funny to me, Lance Gilstrap. Why would you want to be funny to me? Well, I'm very important. That's why I'm up here. When I like something, that means that thing has succeeded at something very special, impressing me, Lance Gilstrap, a very important person. Lesson 1, as it applies to comedy in general. Respect your comedy. So many comedians are so afraid of getting caught taking something seriously that they have to constantly remind everyone, oh, we're just having a laugh, right? This isn't important to me. You don't have to remind everyone that what you're doing is comedy. You don't have to wink at the audience every time you make a joke. We know it's comedy. Stop with the fucking mugging too. That's annoying and doesn't make anything funnier. Commit to it. If you're half-assing everything, just going through the motions, please don't waste my time. Are you doing scripted comedy? Learn your goddamn lines. Commit to your character. Are you doing improv? Rehearse. Get a coach. Take workshops. Whatever you need to do to actually commit to doing something other than just showing up. Respect your fucking comedy. Unless it's part of the bit that you're supposed to be drunk or whatever, don't get drunk or whatever. Usually when I see a drunk improviser or stand-up, I feel like they just don't respect their audience, and worse, they don't respect their comedy enough to commit to not being all fucked up while they deliver it. Oh, I have a show in 15 minutes. Should I have a 4th beer? Yeah, who gives a shit? That's you telling your comedy to go fuck itself. Last, break shit. Surprise me. Don't keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. If something sounds scary and new, do that. Break shit. I know, lost a page. Okay, lesson 2. A note for scripted comedy. This is a quick note. Trim that fucker. Edit your fucking sketches, guys. We are doing scripted comedy because we have time to decide what goes where and why. Put in the time to trim the fat. If you're just transcribing an improv scene you did, that had better have been the tightest improv scene that's ever been performed on Earth. Spoiler, it probably wasn't. Watch good sketch. Every moment is there for a reason, and it's probably not 12 minutes long. I know that sounds hypocritical from someone who's just standing up here basically saying the same thing over and over again, but Cody encouraged me to fill time. Lesson 3, as it applies to improv comedy. Now, before I dive into what is essentially just a list of improv pet peeves that I'm using this whole speech as an excuse to get off my chest, here's a quick caveat that goes along with a whole lesson. This is a lesson in how to be funny. If you're an improviser, don't be a selfish improviser that just cares about how funny you are and doesn't give a shit about the rest of the people on stage with them. This should go without saying, but it obviously doesn't all the time, so I'm saying it now. With great power comes great responsibility, blah, blah, blah. Figure out the right time to be funny. Okay, here are some improv rules. Don't fuck with the chair so much. I will probably never shut up about this. We have the chairs because sometimes we need to sit down for certain scenes. But if you come out and start playing with the chairs, or talking about the chairs, or talking about how there's too many chairs, or not enough chairs, or how it's weird there's chairs on this rowboat, then you're scared of actually investing in a scene. Stop that. Get a new go-to character or accent. Once you figure out what your go-to character or accent is, change that. If I've seen you play twice and already know that you're gonna always play a fucking kid sitting in a sandbox, then that probably means you're afraid to make bolder choices. If I've seen you play twice and know you're gonna be Chinese lawyer or Chinese librarian, then you're probably racist. Once you find your go-to, change it. The only go-to character you should hold on to for an extended time is the character of yourself. Lesson 4, the most important lesson that applies to all comedy makers. Don't take any of this too seriously. Don't change what you do because it's on a list of what not to do. What did we just go over? Be true to yourself, not some fucking list. This whole thing was a big trick. You fell for it, pretend person I just made up for this example. Listen, pretendy, I know you want to be better. And it helps to listen to other people talk about comedy and to read books about comedy, but the thing that helps most is deciding for yourself what you really believe makes good comedy. If someone else's path to good comedy really works for you, then explore that model. If it seems like total hogwash, please politely decline to use any of it. So to recap, learn funny, be funny, don't listen to me, and break shit. Thank you.